Yesterday we talked about angles, and I said that angles were going to be important in geometry because angles are going to help us name shapes. And in today's lesson, angles are going to help us classify and name different types of triangles, okay? So triangles, all of these are triangles. Tri means three. All of these shapes have three sides. They're all polygons, closed figures, straight sides. Okay, three sides. So we have different types of triangles. Now, triangles can be classified two ways: by the length of their sides. So depending on how long their sides are, they have different names. And they are also classified by their angles. Okay, so you can look at a triangle two ways and you can give it two names. You give it one name for its sides and one name for its angles. Okay, so if we look at this here, the first kind of one we're going to look at has to do with the sides. So we have an equilateral triangle. So equal should give you a clue with the name. An equilateral triangle is a triangle that has three sides the same. So notice the measurements on each of these sides are the same. And if you didn't have the measurements, you have that little hash mark, one here, one here, one here. There's one in all three sides, so those three sides are the same. So a equilateral triangle has three congruent sides. There's that word congruent again from the other day. Congruent means exactly the same. So three congruent sides makes it equilateral. Okay. Now, an isosceles triangle, all right, it's a funny name. Isosceles triangle has, how many congruent sides? Well, let's look. So this triangle, if I look at the sides, this one's 3 inches, this one's 3 inches, and this one is 2. So if I look at this triangle, only 2 of the sides are the same, which are these two. And again, these two sides have a little hash mark through them, and this side does not. Okay? So that means an isosceles triangle has 2 congruent sides, 2 sides that are exactly the same. And then we go down here to a scalene triangle, okay, which is kind of a funny name. But a scalene triangle, if you look at it, if you look at the sides, okay, none of the sides are the same. This one's 4, this one's 5, and this one's 3. So a scalene triangle has 0 congruent sides, 0 sides that are the same. So in this column, remember, over here, all of these triangles are being named by their sides, okay? So 3 sides the same is equilateral, makes sense, equal. Isosceles has 2 sides the same. One of the ways you can remember that is isosceles has 2 S's in the name and 2 E's in the name, so it's got 2 sides the same. And scalene, the way that I used to remember scalene is it's kind of scaly and not pretty, like a scaly monster. The 3 sides are all different. So that's kind of how I remembered it. Not necessarily a nice way to remember it, but all right, so that's how you classify it by its sides. But you can also classify it by its angles, okay? So what that means is you give it a name based on its angles. So if we look here at this triangle, okay, this one that we're looking at here, the name of this one is a right triangle. Okay, so that kind of covers it up a little bit. A right triangle, now this should give it away. A right triangle has one 90-degree angle. Okay, so, or one, I'm sorry, it says a right triangle has one 90-degree or right angle. I gotta write the word right in there with this awful tool. Okay, so it has one right angle. And remember that as long as this is in the corner, that means that it's a right angle. So this angle measures 60. They gave us that number. This angle measures 30, which means these two angles are acute. And this angle is 90. All you need to be a right triangle is to have one 90-degree angle in your right triangle. We go down here. We have an acute triangle. Now this one's a little bit different. In an acute triangle, all 3 angles are acute. It has no 90-degree angles. So an acute triangle has three right, or I'm sorry, an acute triangle has three angles that are acute. Oh boy, it's really hard to write with this. You guys are probably better at it than me. Okay, that's pretty bad. Moving on, an obtuse triangle has one what angle? So I mean, we want to look at it and see what's different than these two triangles. So if we look at this one, the one thing I notice about this one is it's really kind of spread out and flattened because this angle is bigger than 90 degrees. It has one obtuse angle. Okay, so this one has no obtuse angles. This one has no obtuse angles. The only triangle that has an obtuse angle is called an obtuse triangle. With angles measured, triangles measured by their angles, and triangles measured by their sides. Okay, so you're gonna have to make sure you kind of stop and look at this and pay a little extra attention, pause it, read it over, because these are, you're gonna be able, or you're gonna be expected to remember these names. And I'm thinking that these names are ones that you've already heard before, okay? So what that means for us is that we can give a triangle two names. So because we can classify a triangle two ways, a triangle gets two names. I like to think of it as a first name and a last name, just like us. So if we look at these triangles, let's name this first one together. Okay, so let's look at this triangle. We're going to name that one together. We're going to first name it by its sides. So we want to look at the length of the sides. Apparently this triangle has sides that are miles long. It's kind of a big triangle. So we've got 14, 9, and 15. So those numbers are not the same. So not the same, not neat, not pretty. Oh, here it is. No sides that are the same, no congruent sides. That's a scalene triangle. Okay, so we're going to give this scalene. Okay, now that's one name. Now we got to give it a name for its angles. So I'm going to look at the angles here and I'm going to say, oh, that one's acute, it's less than 90. That one's acute, it's less than 90. And that one's acute, it's less than 90. So I go back here. Okay, it's not a right triangle. It's not an obtuse triangle. It's an acute triangle. It has three angles less than 90. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add to the name that this is a scalene acute triangle.